Okay, everyone. Again, of course, I'm going to say thanks for coming out. But today we're going to talk about a case, the right of passage over Indian territory. In my version of the book, it's on page 69, I believe. I had to take a look. And this is a very, very important case because Portugal actually took India to court, stating that there was a practice of the freedom to go through Indian territory to get to Portugal, Portuguese enclaves. Portugal, people forget, was an empire and owned a lot of area. And when you read that little case, it's pretty interesting because there's two important facets to the case. One is practice, like we talked about, customs, but practice of states, and then the fact that it went to court, and then the fact that people wrote about it. This helps define international law. And the other point of it, it was saying, yes, it did have this type of local custom between the two countries, that Portugal would allow India through its territory. You have to allow Portugal through your territory. This is a very, very important case, and it's very, very interesting because it stresses the idea of practice. So the court found that the international court, that there was a general practice between two states, and that Portugal did have a right. So Portugal was allowed to go through. Again, not major powers. No offense to India and Portugal. I know India claims to be the world's largest democracy and wants a place on the Security Council, and we can talk about that a lot. You could even do a paper on it. But the point is that this is where practice comes into play more so than it does, I think, and you can debate this point, in domestic law. So that precedent is very, very important, and local between countries, but also local issues within countries. It's interesting. The book, the version I have, has an example from Colombia, but in an immigration case where it said, no, these two countries didn't develop these kind of local regional laws, because there's a part of the book that talks about, the more local oriented part that will influence international law. One of the things you're going to see that I did was on the Colombian Peace Process, but I was there during the COVID, and Colombia closed down, so I couldn't really finish. So, but what's interesting is I'm in a place where all of these combatants are trying to sell products in order to incorporate these ex-combatants of the FARC, that was the guerrilla group trying to overthrow the government. It was Latin America's longest civil war, though there was the United States was involved. So it wasn't completely a civil war. So the idea here is, does this and can this, from a local point and a local homegrown kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? Organic type of law and behavior influence international law? And in this case, I certainly hope so, because the civil war in Colombia was completely brutal. It lasted like over 60 years. And the peace process is very, very unique, as you read in the South-South Relations, or I hope you did, article, to the extent to which I hope the incorporation of ex-combatants, so they don't go back and rearm and fight, can be taken to a whole international level, right, in order to create more peace in the world. Like even in the current Israel Palestinian crisis, what are you going to do in the aftermath with all of these traumatized people? You have to incorporate them back into society, as well as all the people, the Palestinians, Israelis, etc., back into society. The same thing goes with Myanmar, and so on. Sudan, which has exploded. There's so much conflict out there, and it's very, very lamentable. Myanmar, will it ever end? And, can we create peace? And if you read about the genocide in the former Yugoslavia, which is very, very important, the genocide cases that took place But at the same time, the problem is, getting people there. And now, a lot of countries like the United States won't even recognize, the International Criminal Court, the ICC. So, and we saw a video previously on the problems with it, the struggles with the ICC. So the question becomes, can the local ideas of peace be taken into international law and international organizations? But I also wanted to stress one third part. So the first part was a very interesting case on the rite of passage over India, and how Portugal won due to practice and local customs between the two states. So this is very, very important to develop international law. And then once Portugal won, you have it written in the book, and then, it's literally written so they can use that case in order to argue other cases. That's why if you study law, you have to know the cases extremely well. So the other point there was the local custom and more regional laws, can they be taken if they're useful into international law? And I think the Colombian case study should be taken more into international law and to be studied. A third point, which is even more topical, is the idea of treaties. Now, I said before in the previous lecture that some of these treaties are sketchy because, there's a dictator and then the dictator signs the treaty and then he or she is overthrown. What happens, right? So there is one thing about treaties, though, that are important. They're more codified than just your word. I bring this up because Russia has continually said the West reneged on promises that it wouldn't expand NATO and the EU westward, my mistake, eastward, towards Russia. So the question becomes, is that true? Well, Russia should have had a better treaty. If you think about it, when it was Yeltsin, I believe, that was debating and engaging with Clinton on this, I did go back in the Fruce documents, and I believe it was in the archival documents of Georgetown where Clinton did give his word on this, but it was never codified in a treaty. This stresses the importance of treaties, because if Putin had a treaty, right, that, NATO would stop here, or NATO would do this, or NATO wouldn't do that, there becomes the idea that this would be more binding by international law, and I think Russia would have a stronger case. Now, that's going to be up to you what you think of Russia and the Ukrainian crisis as we have that debate. I mean, just to get right into it. And this is a very, very important debate. But it doesn't seem, and someone can challenge me on this, that there is a formal international treaty between Russia and the United States. And it's funny, it's like they're doing it with the United States. The United States is still the empire. I mean, they're not doing it with France because we are the ones that essentially run NATO. That is, from a U.S. perspective, the United States runs NATO. So that's the importance of treaties in international law, I think, because the book did a little thing on it, but it really kind of elevates the level, like, oh, wow, if you had a treaty, Russia, you would, be on better ground. At least that's my opinion. Whereas it did seem in the George Washington archival research, if you've taken me for empirical inquiry or other courses, I have used it, national security, in the class, and they're very, very interesting. And if you sift through it, I'll put it on as a extra supplemental site. Then Russia, if they did have a treaty, but is the word of a president, like say Clinton with Yeltsin, does that, right, rise to international law? And then you have to say, is Russia breaking international law, because of the invasion of the Ukraine? So those are pretty interesting points, 3 points here: the rite of passage over India, the idea of local customs being involved in that one, and the state practice of allowing the rite of passage. And then you have, you got to watch my video on the ground in Colombia, which is very interesting, because did that civil war, the end of a civil war, and incorporating ex-combatants, is there something we can learn that can rise to international law that can be applied to other countries and even codified in international law? the way they do it, etc. And three, did Yeltsin and Clinton sign a treaty? It didn't seem like they did. And it does the word, even if Clinton did say, quote unquote, promise Yeltsin that he wouldn't expand NATO, does that rise to the occasion of international law and allow Putin to invade the Ukraine? So you've got three really interesting points there in international law. So I do want to thank everyone for coming out and watching my videos and even though you have to, I know. But take care, everyone, and stay safe.